Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to your afternoon rabble here on the Rangers Rabble Podcast. I am Martin. I'm your host, and I genuinely completely forgot what time it was. I was doing some stuff about the house, and I completely forgot what time it was. So, yeah, hello. Welcome, Ash. How are we?
I'm very well, thank you. And I like your honesty there. The go and bet in the chat was either hair and makeup or asleep. I don't think anybody had you as the wrong time. So there we go, folks. Sorry about that, but it's good to be back on after a couple of weeks.
Completely lost track of time. Genuinely.
What, can I just ask what you were doing that distracted you? You must have been enjoying it.
well, first of all, it was the dishes, putting stuff into the dishwasher, and then I was making my lunch, which I sat down and had my lunch, and then I was watching TV. So,
again, I love the honesty. You could have made something up there like building shelves or just straight up honest. That's the way to go.
Yes. Big Bang Theory, if you must know. That's what
I can see why you'd lose track of time. That's a cracker.
Yes, and I had left my phone upstairs, which is why I'm late. So yeah, there we go. All righty. Ash, how was your holiday?
Yes, I mean, to be honest, I wasn't really on holiday. I was just pretending so that I didn't have to talk about Rangers for a few weeks. But no, all joking aside, it was good to get away and a bit of a break from reality. But back at it now. I have actually missed talking about Rangers, not maybe missed the team as much. But no, it's good to be back on the pod after a few weeks out. Although I did keep an eye on things, obviously, whilst I was away.
Well, yeah, I wish I could take a 2-week break. Then maybe I wouldn't be late. Yeah, and I mean, look, Lyndon, the Rabble fans demand change. I'm happy to give you change. I'm very, very happy to give you change. It's no problem. I mean, I've got one bit of good news. So, I've lost £10.
Oh wow! Congratulations, well done.
Yes. I was at my Slimming World last night, and I've lost £10. So you wouldn't see me behind a lamppost now. That's
Turn sideways, you're just completely gone. I wondered who the host was today. I was like, who's this character?
That's why I was late.
Yeah.
My body can't handle it. Just quickly, Ash, did you see the clip on TalkSport with David Edgar?
I haven't. No, I've heard that it's happened, and apparently David Edgar did very well in terms of giving an alternative point of view to Jim White's suggestion that fan media is not as good as mainstream media. But I haven't heard that. It's something I'll go and listen to later. Have you had a chance?
Yes, I watched it.
Right.
Jim White just seemed very confused that somebody who wasn't a journalist could speak, to be honest.
Right.
And Simon Jordan agreed with him, with David Edgar. So it was just fun to watch Jim White just kind of sit back and go, hold on a minute, this guy can actually spring a sentence.
And was there any concession from Jim that perhaps he got it wrong and had a bit of a dinosaur view of media in the current climate? No, okay, fair enough.
No, but I'll tell you what has happened though, since my little outburst about Jim White. I'm now demoted to 2:15 in the morning on TalkSport.
I'm sure the two aren't correlated at all.
No. But that's me. I was on TalkSport at 2:15 this morning. I get invited onto the show, and it's by a guy called Paul Ross. And I says to my missus, "Oh, I'm going on TalkSport later." I says, "There's a guy called Paul Ross. Never heard of him before." My missus goes, "Oh, that's Jonathan Ross's brother." And I went, "Oh, right, okay." So he's got a speech impediment. So yeah, it was Jonathan Ross's brother.
Would not have known that. Did it go well?
It was more a comedy thing, to be honest. Then I realised that, right, because it was pre-recorded, and then I went, right. So this is why it's at 2:15 in the morning.
We'll stick the link up. It'll be good. I'm sure folk would like to listen to it.
Well, there's no link.
So it didn't really happen. It doesn't exist. There's no evidence of it. What a shame. 2:15.
You can hear, if you didn't hear it on the radio at 2:15, you won't hear it. It's as simple as that.
Well, next time I think you should let everybody know so we can all set our alarms and jump on TalkSport to hear you doing comedy, because I would quite enjoy that, I think.
Well, from Natalie Sawyer at 7:30 in the morning to Paul Ross at 2:15 in the morning. There we go. I'm not getting invited on Jim White's show, I don't think.
Now that would be quite good to see you and Edgar, kind of the double team Jim White. I would enjoy that as well.
Be careful what the words that you say and the words that you use.
Maybe I should be on at 2:15. I'm going to get stuck on the graveyard shift now. I think that's my
Listen,
punishment.
I'm gonna. I put in a message into the wrong group asking if anybody wanted to do it for me. But yeah. Anyway, Ash, are you feeling any different after the weekend? After the win against Hibs, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, no, I'm still, I'm done. I'm still not happy. And there's another. There is not many, but there is a few going right. Okay, well, hold on, wait a minute. We won. Let's see where this goes.
I mean, in terms of how I feel, obviously, I'm happy to get the result, and it's nice not to have Rangers ruin another weekend, which has kind of become par for the course. But no, I don't really think it shifts the bigger picture with Russell Martin. I still think he's 90 minutes away from everybody being really upset again. I mean, we've got the European game on Thursday, which normally would be a bit of a bright spot in when we've had difficult domestic games, but actually given what happened with Bruges, I'm not sure people are looking forward to that game anymore than they previously would have been when we're playing in the Europa League. So no, if you're asking me, do I think it shifts the needle on Martin's long-term prospects at Rangers? I don't. But what I do think is it is nice just to have a little bit of positivity around the club, even if it is small. And in fairness, I think for me, the biggest thing about Saturday was making it into the next round of the Cup. If we go out there, and who knows who's going to be the boss in November, let's be really clear, honest about it. It might not be Russell Martin that leads us out at Hampden. But if we go out of the competition there, the league looks gone, in my opinion. Apologies to be negative. Second place, I think, will be a reasonable achievement, which is quite an incredible thing to be saying as a Rangers fan. And then the first draw of the Scottish Cup in January, we could end up at Parkhead or Tynecastle. So there was a real risk if we didn't make it to the semi-final this weekend that our entire domestic campaign could have been done before we've left winter. So for me, that was the biggest positive. And it is interesting because I think some people probably felt on Saturday they wouldn't have minded losing the game just to get Martin out that little bit quicker. But for me, I wasn't convinced that would happen. So overall, I left Ibrox on Saturday pleased that we'd got the result, but not feeling as though we'd turned a corner, if I'm being honest.
No, because I suppose then that leads me to the sort of next question about the performance. Was it a much improved performance for you? Were you not disappointed, but surprised at Hibs and how sort of, I want to say how poor they looked, but they did have their chances. Maybe it was just a case of not taking them. Maybe they did play quite well. I don't know. But was it a better performance from Rangers?
I think it was, but again, you kind of caveat with saying the bar's really low this season. We've really not seen, anywhere near consistently even decent performances. So I wouldn't say it was fantastic. I think there was still problems. We still look really vulnerable to that ball over the top. We look vulnerable playing against anybody who has a midfield or front three that are pacey. So those problems exist, and better teams have and will in the future punish us if we don't find a way to resolve that. But I think it was a better performance. I think the players looked like they had a bit more purpose about them, and I think they seemed to be a little bit clearer about the game plan. But not to focus on the negative, let's be clear, if that goal had been allowed for Hibs, am I convinced we'd be sitting here saying that we'd got through to the next round? Were the team strong enough mentally to overcome that setback? I don't know, because I looked at Martin when that goal went in, and unless I'm looking at the wrong person, he went and sat straight down in the dugout as if, exasperated. And I just think that's probably how the players felt as well, thinking we've had a reasonably decent start and look, we're a goal down to the same goal we've conceded many times this season, and how are we going to turn it around now? So yeah, overall, I think, we played better. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but it was good enough to beat a Hibs team that were disappointing on the day. But actually, if you look at their domestic form, they've drawn quite a lot of games and they've conceded quite a lot of goals. So yes, they were a threat on Saturday, but probably not coming into that game, in the same sort of form the likes of Hearts were, where I think Hearts were expected to beat us. I'm not sure that I felt that Hibs were necessarily going to beat us on Saturday before the game.
No, I did. I thought Hibs were going to. I thought Hibs were, and this is where my head's at right now with Martin and this team. I thought Hibs were the favourites going into the game, which is crazy. No domestic team, including Celtic, should be favourites coming to Ibrox. We should always be the favourites. But that was where my head was going with it.
I think, in fairness, Martin, that was quite the common view. I think maybe it was more kind of hope than expectation on my part, but I just felt as though we might get something out of the game. But yeah, I mean, to be 2-0 up at half time and pretty much in cruise control second half was probably more than most people would have hoped for, because I think a lot of people thought it could have been quite a difficult afternoon for us.
How much of that was for you was down to Raskin?
A huge part of it. I think the shackles seemed to be off for him on Saturday. I mean, he covered a lot of ground, which he always does, but he looked like he was enjoying himself a little bit more. And what I think he does really well is he takes the pressure on his shoulders. Like he's comfortable being that man to take the ball. And I think that just takes a little bit of the pressure off some of the other players around him. And I don't know how many times, for a guy that's small, he doesn't have like a headed goal. He's scored that goal a few times now. And just really impressive. I think he sets the tone early. I think he brings his teammates up to his standard. And I think everybody in the stadium and in the team were just grateful and happy to have him back and hopefully close that chapter, because that has been a completely unnecessary sideshow. You don't have a Belgian international playing alongside the likes of De Bruyne and Haaland sitting on the bench. So yeah, Raskin for me is a huge part of this squad having any chance of being good this season. But I tell you what I did find interesting is after the game, we've talked before that Martin doesn't really take any blame for anything that goes wrong. I noticed that when he was talking about Raskin, he was very positive, but he did a couple of times mention that the position that Russell Martin played him in has helped him to be good on Saturday. And I thought on the flip side of that, I never really heard him say with the likes of Aarons when he was playing on the left badly that the position he put him in probably didn't help him. So I just, not wanting to shoot Martin down all the time, but I thought that was quite an interesting thing to say, that he did kind of make it a little bit about himself in terms of how well
we found a role for him.
Yeah, the position, I think he said that I played him in or we played him in helped him. And I just thought that wasn't really necessary when you don't really take the blame when things go wrong. Just my opinion.
I mean, I think it's evident. I think it's obvious that they don't like each other. I think Raskin turning around to the crowd and giving it thumbs up and clapping, especially when he's looking over to the Union Bears, while they're all standing with big signs up saying Martin out. I think it's evident that they don't like each other. But is Russell Martin now in a position where, because of how well Raskin played against Hibs and the fact that we won the game and the fact that we've drawn 4, lost 1 in the opening 5 league games of the season, is Russell Martin Ash now in a position where he can't afford not to play Raskin, regardless of the situation?
I mean, I think it would be another spectacular own goal if he were to drop out of the team. I mean, we don't know the full story. I mean, my thoughts on it, and this is maybe unfair, is that if Raskin had done something really over the line, he would have been fined, he would have been suspended, he probably would have been, sent to Coventry, i.e. kicked out of the squad in the summer at the end of the window and put somewhere else. So I think to me it's been more of a personal thing in terms of he's maybe challenged, all the noises coming out of the likes of Barry Ferguson is that Raskin does have a bit of needle about him. He does ask questions. Why are we doing this? Might have been challenging some of the things that we were doing that weren't working. And Martin's taken a little bit of exception to that. So for me, it's just been like an interpersonal thing that they've had a few issues and differences, and it's snowballed into something that it didn't need to be. It looks to me like that's now gone to bed. The fact that he started Raskin. I think it was also a little bit of a nice touch that Russell Martin subbed him as well on 87 minutes or 88 minutes, whatever it was, to give him the opportunity to get the ovation from the crowd. If he was being really proud, he might not have done that. So I think that maybe speaks to the fact that they've both just accepted what happens in the past and they move on. But for me, you cannot play your best player. And if you do, he's just going to get to that exit door a lot quicker if that's the decision he makes.
I love turning into the Terminator. When the sun comes through, it's great. You don't need to like your boss to do your job, though, Martin. Just ask anyone on the Rabble. Is that true, Ash?
I plead the fifth. I am not touching that one, Wilf. I am just going to pretend I didn't hear the question. Well, as my signal gets cut.
Yes. Should do a poll on what Martin has disliked more. Probably me. Probably me, to be honest. Right, I've got a couple of singing the blues. Does Martin feel tall when on with Ash? Well, we're both sitting down, so and I've yet to actually meet Ash in the flesh, and I've been told that if I'm not paying attention, I'll walk right by her in the street because she's at such a low level.
I mean, singing the blues, a garden gnome feels pretty tall when beside me. So I guess Russell Martin probably does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not Russell Martin. Me.
Oh, you? Well, I've got. Yeah, you're right. Well, right, guys. If we, when and if we meet in person, we'll have to take a back-to-back picture so people can have a good chuckle. I'm not sure there's as big a height difference as you would suggest, Martin, but we'll find out.
Well, no, there is. There absolutely is. This is from Null. It's havering to think it was meaningfully better. It was routine that this squad does not have the quality to win week in, week out over long periods of time. This is the point, Ash. It's weaker than last year, the current squad. Do you go along with that?
I'd say it's really difficult. I would actually say the quality of the player that's come in, there are flashes there to suggest that these guys are going to be good players for Rangers. I would think mentally we seem to be a little bit weaker because not many Rangers teams have gone on a 5-game domestic league campaign and been 11th in the league. So I think in terms of kind of mental robustness, I'm concerned that this squad is weaker. With regards to quality, I don't know if I agree with that. I just don't think that they're being utilised in the way that makes them be successful. I don't think there's a cohesive game plan that we can see week to week. So I'm not sure about that. I understand the point. I don't think Saturday was fantastic, but the bar is so low that I think you have to concede we played better. But if we play like that between now and the end of the season, it's not going to be a successful campaign for us. I think that's also fair to say.
Yeah, 100%. Jock Blue, the so-called Russell Martin style of play is slowly being abandoned, which is good because it's crap. I don't know so much if that's true. I mean, tactics-wise, maybe he played Asgard slightly further forward against Hibs, maybe. But out with that, did we see? And I'm not a tactics guy, Ash, right? But did we see much more of a tactical change against Hibs? And if we did, does it have anything to do with the fact that that's twice now that Andrew Kavanagh has been in the director's box, and twice the team seems to have changed a little bit?
I think that's a really interesting aspect of it, is that every time Kavanagh's been in the building, because I think he was at one of the European games as well, where he played reasonably well, the team seemed to turn up and play. So whether that's the players get a boost from him being there, or whether it's Martin does something a little bit extra special, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Martin was criticised heavily for being dogmatic in the way that he plays, and I would agree that that seems to have changed slightly. I think there's less of an emphasis on control just for the sake of it now. I think we are a bit more comfortable at trying to move the ball forward a little bit quicker. I thought Magoma on the left had a good game on Saturday. He seemed to have a little bit more license to come and support Gassama, maybe overlap him slightly. Excuse me, I thought Gassama was good as well at the weekend generally. So yeah, I think it is fair to say that Martin has adjusted how he's playing, but how much of that is because he thinks it's the right thing to do versus the pressure that he's under, I don't know. But for me, you've got to see it over 4, 5, 6 games before you hand out any flowers to him, because at the moment we're still staring down the barrel of a catastrophic start to the season. So it's a step in the right direction, but we might take 2 steps back at the weekend. That's the thing. You go into Livy on Sunday not really sure what you're going to get from this squad. And that, I think, is the fundamental issue. No one's going to go pitch up at the Spaghetti Had or the whatever it's Tony Macaroni Stadium, now, and feel confident the way that in previous years you probably would have expected us to get the 3 points.
Did you, and well, first of all, right, I want to come back to something to do with Livingston. I want to come back to something that Martindale spoke about. But just before that, I can answer this question, Janet. 4'11".
5'2", probably somewhere in the middle. Probably somewhere in the middle of those 2 numbers, Janet, I would suggest. But it's not 4'11". Come on now. I don't need like a step to get into the car. I'm not that bad.
That's because you've got a Tonka car.
Remember this is only an excuse, Sean Maloney in the little plastic, the yellow and orange car. Yeah, that's what I drive to work down, or I drive to Ibrox down the M8 and that. Ripping myself here. What am I doing?
Do you know that way now? It's a shame now because I want to say some jokes, but then I'm having to think in my head, right, well, is that PC now? Are we allowed to use the jokes now? Because I just don't know if you're allowed to use them or not.
I'm not easily offended, but I don't know whether you might get cancelled by YouTube, so I probably best to go with caution, particularly after my Jim White, you and David Edgar comment, which could have got us in trouble. So,
well, people are easily offended these days. And somebody who's very, very smart, by the way, Ross Bright, has become a YouTube member. Thank you. My jokes are wasted on you people, honestly. Has become a YouTube member. Thank you very much, Ross. Thank you for the support, my friend. And I hope that you enjoy the extra content. So thank you very much. Did you see, Ash, David Martindale's comments about refereeing after the Livingston game?
I did. I didn't watch it live, but I did hear him sort of making the point that there's these referees, even with the technology that all the clubs have spent a lot of money on, are still getting huge decisions wrong that are materially impacting games. And you can't really lie about that when Willie Collum's having to come out every week and basically grovel to half of Scottish football. It isn't just one team that's affected. It seems to be one team that's not affected, but I won't in a negative way. I'll let you work out who I'm talking about. But it is a real problem. There is a real dearth of quality and officiating in this country, and it makes our league look like a bit of a laughing stock, to be honest.
Something, I suppose, an angle that we haven't really came at it from, because when we hear the costs of VAR, right, Rangers, Celtic probably look at it and go, well, I mean, all right, okay, it is what it is. If you need to pay $500,000 or $1 million or maybe even $2 million to Rangers and Celtic is nothing. $2 million to Livingston, or whatever the actual cost is, between $500,000 and $2 million, whatever it is. For Livingston, for Dundee, even for the likes of now Aberdeen and Motherwell and Kilmarnock, it's a lot of money, Ash. And what you have to then demonstrate, the people that bring this stuff into the game, is you have to get value for your money.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get decisions that are made right. I mean, if decisions keep going against teams like Livingston and they get relegated after paying an absolute fortune to bring this stuff in, it's not right.
No, and I mean, I can't pretend to know what the cost is, but I believe it's the hundreds of thousands. I think at least it's at that level. And if you're a Livy or a team like that, that's the difference between signing a player in the transfer window or maybe one or two players. That's the difference between being able to keep one of your better players on better wages. But these guys are being forced to invest in technology, which, as you've rightly said, should help people get to the right decisions, which will decide games, which would mean you stay in the league if you deserve to stay in the league, or you'll go down if you should be on the end of a bad decision, or a penalty given against you in the last minute that decides whether you stay up or not. If it's a penalty, it's a penalty, and if VAR intervenes to do that, then great. The problem is when you're taking this kind of money out of teams' budgets and getting it wrong. I mean, that's a double injustice there. So I don't really know who can hold these guys accountable, but it's just no longer tenable apologising, because apologies don't put points on the board. And it's not as though, I mean, the guy who was involved, I think, in our VAR decision against Hearts, I think has already made 2 or 3 decisions this year that Willie Collums had to apologise for.
He's the worst top-level official in Scotland.
I mean, if in a matter of a couple of months, if you've had to be apologised for decisions that you've made when you've got every single tool available to you to make the right decision, then I'm sorry. I don't like anyone to lose their job or to be demoted, but there has to be a professional consequence to that, whether it's retraining. There has to be something, because otherwise what you're basically doing is saying, yeah, we got it wrong. We're not really doing anything to try and get it right in the future. You just have to accept it. And there's too much money on the line in professional football to have that attitude. So I don't know where we go. I don't know who applies the pressure, but I do really, I mean, I get frustrated for us, but I do feel for the likes of the Livy and stuff who probably are on the end of a few decisions that don't even get national attention just because of who they are. At least we dominate some headlines, and probably was the reason we got the goal disallowed against Hibs, because of the furore after the Shankland handball. That kind of pressure for Rangers pays off. I don't think it pays off for the likes of Livy.
No, well, I don't. I think Martindale coming out and making a bit of song about it, I think probably might help in moving forward. But if Martindale doesn't mention Rangers, Celtic, Hearts in his answer when talking about it, then I think it probably just gets brushed over, because it's only Livy. So nobody really cares because it's only Livingston, even though we need other teams in Scotland. Otherwise, what's the point in having a league? So yeah, I think it's disgraceful. I really do. I think the level of officiating in Scotland is actually getting worse.
Yeah.
And it's not been at a very, very high standard as it is, Ash. I mean, you can go back to when Willie Collum was a referee. I mean, he was a stinking referee, a shocking referee. And I'm trying to look into my head, and I'm trying to look as far back as I can to go, when was the last time that we could all go, because all refs get stuff wrong, right? But when's the last time we can go, do you know, that was a really good crop of referees? In fact,
Yeah.
do you know what? When was the last time we didn't think about referees? Because if you're not thinking about them, that's probably the last time they were good.
Do you know, I was just about to say that. For me, I don't even want to know or need to know the name of the ref that's reffing our game. I don't even want him to be a factor. I mean, like Nick Walsh on Saturday, it became the Nick Walsh show, where he was just blowing his whistle every 30 seconds and handing out yellow cards for nothing. These referees it's almost as though failure is accepted and getting things wrong. You know, there is no consequence to getting stuff wrong, which is not really what would happen in any sort of normal workplace. So you're right. I mean, I think Bobby Madden from memory used to be a decent ref. Again, that's just instinctively his name cropped up as someone who was quite decent and who didn't seem to really be shifted too much either way by the noise around, you know, Old Firm games, that kind of stuff. And somebody in the chat might highlight a case where that's wrong, but generally speaking, this current crop seem woefully short of where we need it to be to have, you know, games where the referee's just an afterthought. It's about the two teams on the pitch playing football, rather than, you know, spending hours after the game talking about the injustice of the decisions that have gone against one of the teams.
Yeah. Yeah, no, listen, 100%. We'll finish up on this, Ash, right? Because it's a very good question for Multiple Man that I think I've got an answer to, actually, which is why I'm bringing it up. Last week you said Shankland's decision was wrong, but we would still have lost. Did Saturday show that wasn't necessarily the case? No. My answer to Multiple Man there, Ash, would be that Hearts right now are a much better team than Hibs. I think Hearts showed that at Ibrox. And I spoke to somebody whose name I won't mention, who said that even if the Hearts goal was disallowed, and our goal was allowed from the corner, we would have probably still found a way to lose that game.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I think the point you've made is right. I think that Hearts played better at Ibrox than Hibs did. And I think that the Rangers team that played Hearts played poorer than the team that played against Hibs. So I would agree. I think it's a fair question to ask because, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know if we win that game on Saturday if the Hibs goal stands. So I think Multiple Man's right to throw it in there. But I just think that we looked completely short of confidence, completely short of ideas. And apart from a 10-minute spell, really at the start of the second half, we never really looked like we believed that we could get into that game. And Gallant Pioneers, right? I mean, they were after us from the first whistle. You would have thought that Hearts were the home team. It felt like a game at Tynecastle rather than a game at Ibrox when we played them. So, you know, there's no doubt that refereeing decisions, you know, materially impact games. But this current version of the Rangers squad, I'm not sure have it about them to go and beat teams like Hearts, because Hearts looked much better than we did when we played them.
Plus, I think in the majority of the games so far, Russell Martin's been outmanaged as well. I think the other managers have just been better and known what to do and known how to change the game more than what Russell Martin has. Which is one thing that surprised me, because I've actually been fairly impressed with David Gray at Hibs, to be honest, Ash. And I wasn't quite... And I say that as somebody who doesn't see a massive amount of Hibs, right? I see bits and bobs here and there, and obviously when they play us. But I have been quite impressed at how David Gray's managed to turn that situation around, because he went obviously on a long run of just losing and drawing, and they were down the bottom of the league, and he's managed to turn that around. I was surprised at how powder puff Hibs were, to be honest.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, they maybe had the same viewpoint that a lot of people did going into the game, and that they would win. I mean, remember they beat us last time they played at Ibrox. Their fans certainly turned up on Saturday, pretty bullish about. Pretty bullish. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were very loud until the disallowed goal, and then you never really heard much from them the rest of the game. So yeah, I think that Hibs maybe got caught up in their own hype and thought that they would come and win. And yeah, I think Great Wall of Canada is spot on. I think getting that goal so close to half time and then getting the second goal, I think gave us a huge boost and really put them on the back foot. But, you know, not to rewrite history, I mean, Martin Boyle had what looked like, from my angle, pretty much a free header. I think it was in the first half. that he should have buried. Bowie had a good chance as well that he should have buried. So,
Yeah, he did.
if these goals go in, it is a completely different game. But they didn't. And, we've had a tough few weeks. I think you just have to take the victory on Saturday, take a little bit of comfort from it that there's something in this squad that can be built upon, whether it's by Martin or somebody else, and then look forward to hopefully having a decent part of the season before we go into the next international break. Because that's key for me. If he can get through to the next international break with a couple of domestic wins and really a win on Thursday, then I think he's pretty safe. I think if it doesn't go well over the next few games, the noise starts up again. And then it'll be interesting to see if they take the international break to make a change. But doesn't look as though the board are minded to do anything at this stage. It looks as though they're still firmly behind them, which is difficult for a lot of us to stomach who see the season slipping away and it's not even October.
No, and I don't. I really, really hope I'm wrong, but I don't see them changing the manager anytime soon. I really, really don't. Which is unbelievable when you think of it. Right, folks, that will do us for today. Ash, many thanks for not leaving before we started. Thank you very much.
No, I was just so keen to get on after a few weeks. I thought I'll just keep hanging around. But no, thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for the comments as always. And look forward to a couple of games coming up, and no doubt chatting at some point next week.
Yes, and we are back tonight for members at 7 p.m. for your midweek members show. And then we're back tomorrow morning at 10, tomorrow afternoon at 12:30 as well. So thank you, Ash. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all the new members as well. Thank you to all the current members. We have surpassed 400, which is incredible. So if you want to help support the show a little bit more, then you can join as a member now. Links are in the description. Make sure you like. Make sure you subscribe, and don't worry, I can see people talking about Genk. We'll get on to them tomorrow. I promise we'll get on to the Europa League tomorrow. But until then, folks, thank you very, very much. Thank you for the support, and we will speak very, very soon.